This morning we move on, we begin our July theme, the power of understanding. We're focusing on the power of understanding, which comes from the 12 powers. It's sort of this energetic system that our co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, created. And so his belief was there was these 12 powers within us that are very similar. I explain it to people like the chakras, right, that we think of. But they're very much a part of who we are. They're innate to us. And sometimes they're latent because we don't exercise them. We don't know they're there. So part of the job for us, the challenge for us is to A, understand that they're there, and B, to work with them for our greatest and highest good. So this month we're focusing on the power of understanding. And the power is about the ability to know, to comprehend, but more importantly, to spiritually see. Therein lies the importance here. And the power is represented, as all the powers are, by a disciple. The disciple for this month is Thomas, and the color is, I don't know, kind of hard to tell, right? Gold, of course. The color is gold. And the location in the body, each power has a location that when we're exercising this, we're kind of working with it sometimes. It's the front of the brain or the forehead. So this is kind of what we're working with here this month. And the scripture that I have used as the inspiration for this month comes from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. And it's trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. So we can translate that not like Lord, this idea of this overlord, this God from outside or above. The idea is that spirit within. Trust in the spirit, in your spirit that's within you and around you and between all of us with all of your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. What you think maybe is so, is true, is what you know, is what you've been taught. Because we all think that we have understanding, and at some level we do. But what we're talking about here this month is the idea of spiritual understanding, which is very different than the kinds of ways that we generally use the word understanding. I'll give you some examples. So my daughter, when she was younger, I think this was about 7 years ago, we were at a Center for Spiritual Living church, or center rather, in Chicago, and she was very active actually in the youth group there. And so they were very good about talking to the young people and engaging them in service, she was there in the service with me that day. And so, I'm just getting my praise on, and I'm singing, and the music was great, and I'm singing along, and she's standing there, and all of a sudden I look, and she's got her phone. Now, many of you, especially if you were raised Catholic, you know that is a no-no, right? What would your mom do? Ooh, give you the stink eye, right? Like, give you the side eye, the twisted eye. You knew what that eye meant. Like, you're going to get it when you get home, right? So I'm giving her the side eye, like, put the phone away. We are in church, And so she's looking at me confused, and she's continuing to go on. And so this goes on for a couple times, and we're trying to, do this thing, and I'm trying to say, okay, she's not understanding my clues here, the eye, So I finally said, what are you doing? Put your phone away. And she looks up, and she says, Mom, I'm on social media. I'm supposed to be sending out the message into the world. And I was like, oh. This is what we do now. But that was 7 years ago when the young people kind of got it, right? They understood the power of social media. So she's on there, and I don't know what she was doing, Facebook, Instagram, I don't know what she was on, but the young people were already told, like they understood the importance of what was happening here, and so they're sending out what was happening in the service. That was one way had a different perspective. We had a different understanding. We were not really on the same page in that way. She had one understanding, I had another, but that was based on my history in the church versus her new way of engaging spirituality. I'll give you another example from my daughter. She's probably like, really, Mom? How come I have to always be the topic of your talk? But another time, she went on retreat to California, to the annual summer retreat for the youth for the Center for Spiritual Living. And she went, and I gave her this little saint that was given to me when I was about 4 years old by my grandmother. And people who know me know this is my prized possession. I can lose everything, my entire collection of shoes even. That says a lot, right? My entire everything. But that little plastic thing that's probably not worth even 5 cents is everything to me. And she gave it to me the first time that I was sort of traveling away from her. Long story, I won't get into that. But as my daughter travels, I started to give her this little saint. And it was the first time she was traveling alone, and so I gave it to her. And so I explained to her, you can lose everything, but do not lose this. Please, I'm trusting you. She's like, okay, Mom, got it. She comes back, she's got all her things, and she's like, Mom, I have something to tell you. And I was like, oh, boy. And she said, I just want you to know that I think I lost your grandmother's gift. It's like, what? And I had this look of dread, and then she looks at me and she says, not really. I just wanted to see how you would react, because what I really want to tell you is I lost all the new clothes and all the shoes that you bought for the trip. I left them in California. And she said, I just kind of wanted to prepare you so that you would understand and differentiate the importance here, because I'm seeking your understanding. That's a form of understanding, right? Another Isabella example, that's my daughter's name. She was bullied in high school. It was senior year, and we had just come from the police department where we were making a report because she was being constantly bullied by a girl at school. So we had left the police department so that I could drop her off at school, and there's a car in back of us. And she says, Mom, that's the girl, and she's with her mom. So I'm like, okay, get out, go to the mom. So I thought, let me engage the mom. I'm gonna let her know what's happening. Maybe the mom doesn't know. And as this happens, I'm talking to the mom, the young girl gets out of the car and proceeds to move onto my daughter to hit her, she was moving to attack her. So of course, Mama Bear jumps in the way, and just says, this is not happening here. So this whole huge drama ensued. The girl was out of control trying to attack my daughter, spit at her, spit at me. The police were called and they came. Long story short, the police came and they said this girl had already had trouble with the police, and they had given her a last warning. If anything happened, she would go to juvenile detention. So in my mind, it's different, right? Something clicks differently when you're a parent, right? When something happens to your child, it's sort of like all the stuff flies out the window because you're like wanting to defend your child. A mama bear comes out, right? So I was like, yeah, she needs to learn a lesson. She's got to go. This is not inappropriate. She needs to be away from my daughter. She's been terrorizing her. And so my daughter just steps and says, she's not going to go. I don't want her to go. And I don't want this. And we thought, what? So we had to do a side conference, and she just said to me, Mom, this could change her life. If she's sent to juvenile detention, I don't know what will happen. She's still got a chance to change. But if she goes, she may never have a chance. And it was in that moment where the true understanding came in, the spiritual understanding that her heart was speaking. It wasn't her mind, it wasn't her fear. I'm already in ministerial school taking classes, and this child, who was 17, I think at that point, really had the minister's heart. What we're talking about, there's different types of understandings, but the understanding that we're trying to cultivate is a spiritual understanding that comes from the heart, that is paired with intuition, that is paired with wisdom, but it's really about pairing and aligning those together so that we truly are acting, speaking, engaging in the world from that place of understanding. Not from a place of ego or a place of unconscious understanding, what we've already been told, what our parents told us, what our families told us. It's about changing maybe your perspective, being open, being willing to open your heart to see, to hear, and then to understand. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, says the following: Intellectual understanding is understanding gained from teachers and books or from some outer source. Spiritual understanding is understanding that comes from the quickening of the spirit of truth within. He goes on to say, understanding is a spiritual birth, a revelation of God within the heart of man. Jesus touched the root of the matter when, after having asked the apostles a question that was answered variously according to the intellectual perception of the men, he asked another question to which Peter gave a reply not based on external reasoning, but on intuition. He said to Peter, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father who is in heaven." So he's speaking from that feeling, that gut reaction, that deep knowing, not something that he had already been pre-programmed to say or to think. He was not looking out externally. He's like, let me go within. Let me see, what is this? What do I need to say here? What do I need to feel here? What do I need to do here? Charles Roth, who wrote a small but really mighty little book on the 12 powers, it's called 12 Power Meditation Exercise. He says the following: intellectual understanding, that is what you see, what you read, what you hear from teachers and parents and friends, is part of the picture, part of the material on which you base your actions. But in order to get the whole picture, and therefore make sure you are taking right action, you should take advantage of your inner senses of intuition and inspiration in order to receive light and guidance from universal wisdom. We're always being challenged on our understandings. We're always being challenged and given opportunities to engage that faculty of spiritual understanding. That was certainly my case this past week. It was a very interesting and challenging week this last week at the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is the Oglala Sioux Pine Reservation that is the Lakota people in South Dakota, Pine Ridge, South Dakota. I went there not really knowing at some level why I was there. I knew that I had always had an interest in going to the reservation, maybe Pine Ridge in particular, because I had heard of different things that intrigued me about its history. And it had been years since I had really thought about it. And right when I was actually interviewing for this job about July, I get an email from Reverend Tom Wendt, who's at Unity of Woodstock, which is about an hour northwest of Chicago. And he sent this large email to a large distribution list of ministers inviting people to go to this sacred service trip. Now, I hadn't even heard about him doing this. Apparently, he had done this for about 6-7 years already and was a veteran at these trips. And immediately when I saw it, my spirit just said, yes, sign up. And I did. I didn't think about it, I just did it. I said, I know this is my chance. This is what I've been waiting for. This is the moment. And so I signed up. A little nervous because I knew we were going to do work, construction work. We were sort of doing all these things. We had been told there'd be no cell phone reception, all of these things. So I thought, wow, this is going to be really interesting. But again, not going there really knowing what to expect, which was probably a good thing because you're open, you're receptive, you're willing, a little nervous, a little fearful, but also excited, right? So we go there for a week. It turns out I'm going to ask you all to hit the PowerPoint because I got visuals for you all. I was here a week without makeup, without jewelry, without heels, and I have proof. So I'm going to start you off here. We were at an organization called Remember, Re-Member. And the idea is to reconnect the community and also for us to remember who we are as human beings, as a collective family, to also remember the power and the potential of Native peoples. There's so much symbolism to that word. So I'm not going to go, if you can go back for just a second. I think I can do it from here. I'm going to try first. So who you see here is a small but mighty crew that went from Unity of Nashville. That's Sandy Woods, one of our board members. Ashley Hankins, who is new to Unity of Nashville. She started here shortly she started here shortly after I came. The first day that she came was the first day that I invited people to go to the reservation, and she happened to be here that day, and she knew immediately that she was called. And I loved hearing all of those stories over and over again, how people were just called. She was here day one, and that's what she did, and so she joined us. Of course, my wife, Vero, and then that's me. I don't know if I gotta point it over here, right? So you may not be able to see that, but again, a small and mighty group. There's the four of us, and the tall guy in the back is Reverend Tom Went from Unity of Woodstock, and all the way to my right with a gray shirt is his wife, who is also a minister, Reverend Mary Patrice Went. So those were the folks that invited us from Woodstock, and there we are, a little mighty Unity cohort. There was 19 of us all in all. There was folks from Kansas City, from Colorado, from Michigan, from Washington State. I'm trying to think where else. Just all over, really, from one coast to another. Smaller group than they usually had, but it also was a really wonderful opportunity to dive deep into conversation and relationships. So it was really just beautiful to meet all of these wonderful souls. And the age range was pretty extraordinary. I think the youngest was 15, and the oldest was in their 70s. So here's what we did. There was a couple projects that we had to do. One was putting skirting around trailers. There's a lot of mobile homes in the areas. It's a cheap form of living. And so most of them don't have insulation, or the insulation that was put on there at some point in time years ago is no longer functioning. So the idea was to put new skirting, which would act as insulation around the trailers, that would also offer in the wintertime extra heating, and in the summertime, extra cooling. So part of the job was to remove all of the debris that was there. So you can see me there, on the left there, pulling out all the rotted kind of stuff that was there, all of the siding that held it together. There's me hauling it off. So all of that had to be taken off first. And then we had to build the framing. So there's Beto and I building all the framing. You can see in the middle there, the framing then had to be attached. And then there I am cutting with a saw, pretty good with a saw, I might add. Cutting with the saw the siding that needed to go on those panelings. And there's me, finally, with the completed project there of the siding on one of the trailer homes. But if you notice, there's still plywood in that window. Anybody see that? Part of the understanding when we were starting there was for me to say, what is this going to really make a difference? Because the home itself was in tatters. There was really no glass in the windows. That was what was in the window. Other parts of the trailer home, the roofing and such, were, out of just in tatters. But that was part of what are we there to do? What is our calling? Most of us don't realize that area, that county where Pine Ridge Reservation is the poorest county in the nation. I don't want to go through all kinds of stats today, but the reality is that the poverty that is there is unconscionable. The poverty that is there is mind-blowing. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I've mentioned that before. I grew up in the projects. I know what poverty is. I know what standing in the food line is like. I know what wondering where your next meal is going to come from. But nothing prepared me for the poverty that I saw. The devastation of those communities. One of the things about going there, you may see it in some of the other slides, photos, but there was garbage all around. I mean, it was literally like a dump, a toxic dump, not just at this house, but at every house. And that was part of me having to be open, because when you get in situations, right, in contexts that you don't understand, what is our go-to? Our go-to is to revert back to what we know. Our go-to is to revert back to how we can process and understand it. So in my mind, immediately I was like, God, why don't they pick this stuff up? God, this is disgusting. There's children playing out here. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. It was overwhelming for me to see all of this. I mean, there were old baby buggies. There were cars that were rusted out. There was literally debris and garbage, old food, cans, pop cans. It was literally felt like, things were eaten or used and then they just tossed it out the window or out the door. Couldn't understand. But as I moved forward into my week, I began to be understanding and move in the space of a spiritual understanding as well as intellectual understanding, to be able to get those pieces of the puzzle to be able to achieve spiritual understanding. There's no garbage collection on the reservation. Can you imagine that? There's no garbage collection. So think about your own homes where you're cooking and you're eating and you're buying things, and no garbage collection. Now pair that with the fact that most people are too poor to even have a car. So what are you going to do with the garbage that you're using every day? Oh, let me see. I have no other choice. It has to exist here in my home space outside. It makes sense. I had that intellectual understanding that I could then let go of my judgment, let go of my confusion, let go of what I didn't understand intellectually, to just be open to say, there is something more here for me to know and learn, for me to open my heart to feel what's happening here in this community. Now, that's Sandy Wood, our board member, and she's got these pieces of wood that she was sanding down. Because the sanding, all the woods, Sandy was sanding. I thought that was pretty cool. She was working on an outhouse. You can see in the middle what the outhouse looks in the inside, and then you can see what that looks like on the outside, the little outhouses that were being built as well. Again, no garbage, and guess what? No sewage system. Can you all imagine having to go out there in the winter, in the summer? It was 100 degrees pretty much every day we were there. This is what you use. Now, some of us may be older and maybe grew up even with that around here, but that's not, in this country, not part of what we really, for the most part, do anymore. So that was jarring to see that we live in a country, this is not in a third world nation, this is in the boundaries of our country. We took a tour, we went to the Badlands, so you'll see that. That was one of the funny parts of the thing, the group did different things at different times to sort of push us, to push our understanding by the places they took us, by the food that they made us eat. No options, sometimes it's like, this is what people eat here, this is what you're gonna eat. So we went out there, and little did we know that we would be in the middle of the Badlands, which is spectacularly beautiful, but in 100-degree sunny weather, not so much. And we had to pick a place, and there's me on a rock, to meditate. They brought us out there to meditate, to begin to understand everything and integrate everything that we were seeing, to be able to then be with nature, to be with ourselves, to start to process. This is fun. I just threw that in there because I thought it was gorgeous. We would pass on the main street outside of the Remember area where we were housed, and we ate in the wood studio, or whatever you call it, the workshop was. And we would pass on the main road, and there was always a white horse on that hill, just there majestically. At first we thought it was like a statue or wooden or something, but it wagged its tail, and we knew that it was real. Part of that for me was just the remembering that amidst all of this devastation, of all of this drama and trauma and chaos, there's still hope. there is still beauty, there is still mysticism, there is still possibility. It requires spiritual understanding and faith. We did a little ritual closing night. Myself and Vero did a closing ritual with all the participants, and there's me, Vero, and there's a gentleman who was there from Horace from Kansas City, just to be able to come full circle. And in that ceremony, what we did was use our unity principles to vision. Because what are we told? We are told that no matter what you see in the material realm, whatever you see outside is not the truth of who we are. It is not the truth of the Lakota people. But it is also our responsibility to hold the high watch, to vision something else, to vision something spectacular and new, to hold that possibility. When we were there, one of the beautiful things we learned about Lakota spirituality, and it is so much entwined and similar to unity principle. One of their main phrases is, I'll say it, told you, mitakuye o yasin, mitakuye o yasin, and that means we are all related, we are all one. What does that sound like? Unity, right? They're firmly of the belief that they would, I love you. We were there and they would tell you, I love you, don't even know me. They would say brother, sister, auntie. Everyone is related to their spiritual system and their code of ethics. Everyone is related. Everyone is connected. Everyone is part of this infinite circle that we see ourselves in you, that I am responsible for you. So no matter what the conditions are here, there's still a movement to hold the spirituality that is about this connection. And so we, together as a group, just did this meditation together to be able to hold that energy, to lift that energy up and see joy and see hope and possibility and see leaders stepping forward and seeing everyone maybe in this congregation stepping forward in some way to support their efforts. And maybe not even here, because the idea is if we are all one, if I do something in a project in Chicago, or I do something in Detroit, or I do something in rural Tennessee, it's lifting up the vibration that is going to make a difference everywhere in Pine Ridge as well. Interchangeable in many ways if we really understand, spiritually understand the principles of what it means to be unity in action. And I think that was my last slide. Yes, and that was just the sunset. That was not altered, by the way. The sunset in South Dakota. Has anybody ever been to South Dakota? Gorgeous, right? The sunset is spectacular, and there's Vero and I just on the last day watching the sunset. I'll talk more as we progress in this month about the trip, because there's so much that I would love to share with you all, but I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to leave it there for us to just sort of open up to what this is, what this could mean, and how as a community we need to be in the world. And I'm going to ask that we move in a time of meditation. I'm going to just engage in us in a meditation for a little bit, and that term is up there, mitakuye o yasin, mitakuye o yasin, mitakuye o yasin. We are all related. That phrase translates in English as all my relatives. We are all related, or maybe even all my relations. It is a prayer of oneness and harmony with all forms of life, other people, animals, birds, insects, trees, plants, and even rocks, rivers, mountains, and valleys. So I invite you to just close your eyes. Close your eyes for a minute. If you haven't closed your eyes, if you haven't ever meditated, open yourself up. Allow yourself to be vulnerable in this moment and to just give it a try. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Relax into this moment and allow for that outer eye to close so that inner eye can step forward, can step out, can see with that spiritual understanding. We take a deep breath as we engage that faculty. Maybe you see gold around you. Maybe you feel or see gold or gold glitters around your forehead, which is the spiritual center for that faculty. Maybe you envision or know something about the disciple Thomas, and so you want to engage that energy. But it's about opening up our heart to seek that understanding from the heart in alignment with the intellect and the intuition. Feel that. Feel and see and know that that integration within you not only can happen, but is happening at this very moment. We can let go together as a community of perception that doesn't serve us. We can let go of unconscious understandings, frameworks, paradigms that we carry that no longer serve us. We let go of the ways that we set up barriers with ourselves even, but certainly between others when we don't understand. I don't understand you. I don't understand why you do that. I don't understand why you hurt me. I don't understand why this has happened to me. I don't understand why you speak to me this way. I don't understand why I'm here right now. But we open up to let that part, that sliver of intellectual understanding access more, receive more information, receive more guidance so that we can fully step into our power as spiritual beings. Mitakuye oyasin. Mitakuye oyasin. Mintakuye oyasin. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. You know, today we move to open up that spiritual understanding. I shared with you just a little bit about Pine Ridge for us to begin to think, even in this context of the 4th of July, where we celebrate freedom and liberation. And I love being an American. Boy, do I ever. So proud of who we are and what we've done. But there's also work to still be done. There's also the ideals of this country and the ways in which they were executed or not executed. That doesn't make it wrong. I want everyone to understand when I bring things like this to light, it's not to judge, because that's not what we're here to do. It's to be able to do this and. I always say it's this and. It's not either or. This is the reality, or this is the history that we have. But what about what can we take? What can we learn? What can we build on? How can we grow? And how can we still engage the principles of this country for liberty and justice for all? It is not a pipe dream. It is possible if we believe, if we move in that spiritual understanding with our hearts open to say, I don't understand you. I don't understand your politics. I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand why. But I'm going to just hold that space of love, hold that space of faith and hope to say, I am free. It's going to start with each and every one of you to be loud and proud about being free in the spirit, feeling it, knowing it, because as we as individuals claim that sacred freedom, that sacred space, we give others the ability and the liberty and the possibility to do the same. We pray. We are founded on prayer for a reason, because prayer changes things, but mostly us, and our ability to change things. Make sense? So we move forward challenging ourselves this month on our understandings. How do we need to be open? How do we need to trust? How do we need to lean not what we think we know, but lean on the Spirit, lean on God to give you the answers, the next steps, the words to speak, the places to go. Challenging what you've learned, what you've been told, how you think and see, and giving yourselves the opportunity to talk to people, to connect, to hear their stories, to try to move into that spiritual understanding. So I leave you here today with the question, what areas of your life might need some spiritual understanding? Where might you need to open up your heart to truly listen, to truly see with the eyes of the Spirit? Is it in your home, with your spouse, with your child, with your parents, with your coworkers, with your friends, with your spiritual community? Where in your life do you need to give yourself that blessing? Because you can give yourself that blessing by just saying, I have this faculty and I desire to engage it more and know it more and feel it more and set that intention. You don't have to know how it's going to show up. You don't have to know when and how or where. You just have to do it. Easy. And the rest will unfold in this mysterious, miraculous, and mystical way. I leave you with Emily Cady. H. Emily Cady, Lessons in Truth. You will no longer dwell in darkness, for the light will be within your own heart, and the word will be made flesh to you. That is, you will be conscious of a new and more divine life in your body, and a new and more divine love for all people, and a new and more divine power to accomplish. This is spiritual understanding. We open our hearts today, and so it is. Amen.